Hi, good day, and welcome to another one of the informative sessions that we do at Simply Mail Solutions to try and give you further information to our existing and new customers about utilising some of the services and techniques that we use in Simply Mail Solutions. As you'll be probably aware, or many of you will be, we're here to help you and across all areas of cloud services that we deliver, to step you through a significant amount of functionality that we find that many of our customers already have. And help you to utilize that better. We're able to provide you with free of charge solutions and to assist you, in stepping through those to give you the tools you need. So we're always available. Our support lines are within the UK, our support teams in the UK, and we're of course more than happy to help you along that. Today we're going to be talking about remote working, and I'm happy to be joined today by Chris Cowell, who's one of our support team, who's going to work with me as we step through and look at some of the facets of remote working and to ensure that you are able to maximize the potential of remote working, understand some of the risks and opportunities that are with it, and perhaps give you some best practice tips in terms of how to do that. So firstly, starting, perhaps Chris, you could tell us what are the key elements that you need to be effective in terms of delivering a remote working solution for yourself and for staff.
Right. For effective remote working, one of the first things you're going to need is a nice stable internet connection. Now, for most people, they'll have their Wi-Fi router in the corner somewhere, but it might not necessarily be, say, near where their home office is or what they're using as a home office. And their computer might not have a very stable connection, so a very low Wi-Fi signal. So you first want to make sure that you're getting a strong signal there, as in move closer to the router, or maybe use something like a Wi-Fi repeater to make sure that you've got a stronger, reliable internet connection as you possibly have, so that what you're doing isn't just getting lost and constantly trying to reconnect. Another thing that you'll want is to make sure that the devices that you have to use it for doing your work have enough screen space for you to actually do your work. Some people would, if you're used to using Excel spreadsheets along with documentation all up at the same time, it's going to be a bit hard to try to get on with your normal level of productivity if you're doing it from a mobile phone screen. So you may want to look at connecting your mobile phone to a smart TV or something like that, just to give you more screen real estate, so that you can continue to work as close as possible as to what you usually would. And in addition, for anything that you're using with your internet browser, you'll want to have it as up to date as you can. Preferably, you probably want to have a few other alternative choices of browser, as with all these online services, as browsers update, as new features are introduced on online services, you may find that you might have to use another browser to get access to the full functionality or for it to remain secure.
Great, thanks, Chris. I think key takeaways from that are, as Chris has just said, is to ensure that you do have not only a stable but the high-speed internet connection that's available to you. If any of our users today that are listening in, you need some assistance in terms of measuring and understanding what connectivity that you've actually got from your laptop or desktop computer to your remote connection, we'd be delighted to rapidly step through that to ensure that you're getting the best possible speed. Secondly, when using video conferencing or a combination of video conferencing and other applications, again, as Chris has said, you may well find that you chew up a huge amount of bandwidth in terms of doing that. So, sitting there with intermittent connection can be incredibly frustrating, both for yourself and also other users that might well be on those calls and on those meetings with you. So again, I think that is absolutely vital. And as we've also said, ensuring that you've got the right browser, the right up-to-date browser, the right revision is also really important. Firstly, in terms of security, which we'll cover later, and then secondly, as we've said, in terms of ensuring that you've got the best possible user experience for yourself, as well as the other team members that you've got. Now, many of our customers, because we're a Microsoft Office 365 specialist, utilize Microsoft Office 365 or are on more legacy Microsoft platforms and perhaps are considering moving to Microsoft 365. So perhaps, Chris, you could tell us, what are the most effective services from 365 that you can use and particularly can use to assist you with remote working. If you could share that with us, I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, so the main ones that get the main heaviest focus basically at the moment are Exchange Online. Basically, it's an Exchange class mailbox, your email. You have SharePoint and OneDrive, which are cloud-based storage for your files, videos, other things that you're making available to others. And you have Teams, which is a communications program we're using it right now that covers both text, video, and audio. And basically get all of them all in this basically as a package in these license types: Business Standard, Business Basic, F3, E3, and E5 of the enterprise plans. So it's not like you have to worry about missing out on one or two of them. They all come all at once in any of those plans.
Right. Okay. Those, of course, all of those different products that are available from Microsoft have a multiplicity of different solutions, prices, dependent upon the size of your business and the specific services that you're using. And in today's session, we don't intend to go through those in significant detail, but of course, we'd be more than happy to step you through those on a support call so that you can ensure that you get the right service for you. Perhaps, Chris, you could tell us a little bit about Exchange Online.
Yep. So Exchange Online is basically, as I mentioned briefly before, it is Exchange Online is Exchange Cloud mailbox that's available from anywhere you have an internet connection. So with it, you can make use of collaboration features like sharing your calendar with other people in your organization. You can have shared contacts. Basically, when you connect through to it, whatever device you're using establishes an encrypted connection through to the cloud servers. So it basically means that when you establish a connection, when you're working with it, nobody can listen in on that connection. So even if you were using it from public Wi-Fi somewhere like, say, McDonald's, if they were open these days for you to go to them, you could rest assured that nobody could be listening in on the communications between your device and the server, even though it's via public Wi-Fi. Brilliant.
So that really gives you fundamentally at the first base, that gives you a secure connection between yourself, either your customers, your suppliers, or other colleagues that you may be utilizing to communicate upon. So that's your base level. So moving on to SharePoint. Now, many of our customers will be familiar with SharePoint and utilize SharePoint within their PCs, but perhaps not so familiar with SharePoint Online, and certainly many not familiar with OneDrive. So what are those components in the solution? What do they do that will aid the experience of an online communications experience?
Yeah, so both of them are forms of cloud storage. Now, the main way that they differ is that SharePoint is more focused on being an organizational cloud storage solution. So when you store files and folders, they're in a central place where you control permissions for everyone to access them and not tied to a specific user. At the same time, that makes it a little more clunky, as you have to use it more through a web browser. OneDrive is more focused as being cloud storage for an individual user that they can then share access to other people. It has the benefits that there's a OneDrive application you can install on your machine and synchronizes everything that's in the OneDrive account to a folder on your machine. So anything you put in there, it synchronizes up, and you can open files and edit them directly from there. In addition, modern versions of the Office Suite through 365 generally give you the option to save files straight to your OneDrive account, making those files available from anywhere that you have an internet connection.
So we've covered Exchange Online, and we've looked at SharePoint Online and OneDrive. And the next, which I think is one of the core component parts of an online experience, certainly using a Microsoft platform, is Teams. So perhaps you could give us a very brief overview of Teams.
Yeah, so Teams is at its heart communication software. As mentioned before, it allows both text communication if you just want to type because you're on a call or something like that. It allows you to start basically a voice session, so you can be equivalent of calling someone, and it also allows video conferencing. Now, this can be to individuals or to groups of people. It also allows you to share files across to them as you're communicating with them, and you can even share your desktop, so you can show people how to do something or how to edit it in real time, thereby sharing your knowledge where you can't physically be there to actually show them how you do it. Another feature that quite a lot of people are taking on is that by taking on Business Voice, they can use Teams basically to become their phone system, and can basically set up call queues and redirects and voicemail all through Teams if they go the full hog and set up Business Voice.
Great. I mean, we do a much longer session on Microsoft Teams, which you'll find on our website as one of our core webinars that we do, and I think you'll find there is a recording of the Microsoft Teams webinar on there, and that gives a much more, as we said, in depth available. What I would say is that many of our customers that are already utilizing Teams may not be getting the most out of it, and it's certainly worth talking to us and getting us to step you through Teams to explore some of the functionality that's available to you out of the box, so how you can most effectively utilize Teams, and then secondly, looking at some of the add-on components, such as what Chris has just discussed there, which is utilizing Teams to become your core voice switch, as well as your video audio conferencing solution at the same time. As Teams continues to evolve, more functionality at each release comes out, very much like the 365 journey in itself over the last 3 or 4 years has expanded from a simple email capability to a wide range of products and services that are available. Teams is following a pretty similar path, so please keep in contact with us and please discuss Teams with us if you're already a Teams user, or if you're considering moving to a Microsoft environment or to a Teams environment. Again, let us step you through Teams so that we can enable you to get the best out of the solutions that we provide you with. So moving on, Chris, we mentioned security earlier on, and how we can kind of stay safe. Perhaps you could step us through the type of functions that are available to increase security, You mentioned Exchange Online earlier on. Perhaps you could widen that out and talk about some of the other layers of security that we are able to offer in a Microsoft remote working environment.
Yeah. So when it comes to security, it's always an ever-changing field, but one of the things that 365 have been rolling out is a set of pre-configured security policies that help keep everyone secure. New customers have these on by default now, ever since basically October, but older customers may not have them on as standard. I'll cover what's involved in security defaults in more detail, but if they're just sort of as basic best practice security policies to have put in place, that's a good way to think of them. In addition, there's Azure Information Protection. This is all related to the information that you have in your organization. It's about classifying all the data in your company and making sure that it doesn't go to where it shouldn't be. Only people who should have access to it, and controlling how it can be shared out.
Great.
Intune is also a new, not so much a new solution, but is also a very powerful solution. It can get very technical very quickly, but just touching on the surface of it, it allows you to define conditions for how set policies for devices that connect through to your services. So you can use it to say anything that has not been updated for 3 months can't connect through to your services, so it can't be a potential security risk. We'll cover a few more details about that more towards the end.
Great, thank you. So perhaps I'd like to say a few things really around the whole area of security, and that is it is a specialist area, and don't wait until you're hit by a scammer or a fraudster or another organization holding you to ransom by one method or another. These are not scare stories that are just in the public domain as it won't happen to me. The crooks are out there. They would not be in business if they weren't being successful. They would give up, and it's a constant battle. And again, I cannot recommend enough to you that you engage with us and get us to do a security review of the services that you're currently using, particularly if you've moved from working with your employees within an office environment to a remote environment, which obviously a high degree of our current customers have done due to the COVID-19 outbreak, and let us step you through that to make sure that you have those protections in place. Now, some of the protections are listed here on the slide that we're currently that we're currently looking at, and I'd just really like Chris to tell you a little bit about what a few of those components are, how they operate, and what kind of protections they give. So, Chris, if you could just step through those, I think that they are extremely important prevention methods that will not completely eradicate, as it's a constant battle, but will give significant protection to many of our existing and future customers that may be starting to utilize remote working.
Yeah. So security defaults, as mentioned before, was a set of predefined policies. And one of the things that it requires basically all users to do, basically within 14 days of it being applied, is that they alter and enroll for multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication being an extra piece to the puzzle of authenticating your access. So instead of a username and password, it'll also want a code that comes from an authenticator app installed on your phone, for instance. And that's all part of it. You have to install the Microsoft Authenticator app from the relevant app store for your device, so the Google Play Store, for iTunes, to work with the multi-factor system when they enroll it up to it. In addition, it switches off and blocks access via legacy, less secure protocols. A lot of them are there for legacy support and aren't necessarily up to date. If it's something that you essentially need, there's ways to switch them back on, but by default, getting them all switched off basically stops there being some old back doors into your setup. The Microsoft Authenticator app is the method that's available to everyone for multi-factor authentication, and is, of course, because of that, there's a lot of heavy focus on it. But there are other options available if basically via add-ons to 365. The Microsoft Authenticator app is just the one they make available to everyone, just to get the base level of security in place.
Great. So how would I get those enabled in my current environment? How would I turn those components on?
Yeah, so for newer customers who have only just signed up to 365 since October, it should be on by default, but it's always worth double checking. But for our older customers, what they would be looking to do is to go to https://portal.azure.com and log in with one of their admin accounts on 365. Once they log in there, they'll see a whole lot of information that they can mostly disregard in this case, because all they need to do is go to Azure Active Directory and then click on the Properties button for it. There's a section under there for Manage Security Defaults, and when you click on that, it'll basically come up with a screen with a toggle box on it for Enable Security Defaults. You just click on the toggle box and make sure it's on, and then from that point on, basically everyone has 14 days to enroll for multi-factor authentication, which they just do by a simple way. Just log into 365 via the web interface, and it'll ask you for some additional information for your account and allow you to set up the Microsoft Authenticator app to work in conjunction with your account.
Brilliant. So let's talk a little bit about Azure Information Protection, on what that's going to do for us and how we get that running.
So the core of it is all about classifying your internal data, and it does this via what it calls labels. It's basically categories. So you could have, say, information that you'd classify as newsletters for various vendors with you, and then you have another category for internal financial audits, and you create labels that would say for internal financial audits that they're only to be accessed by these members of our organization, so nobody else would see them, and they wouldn't be able to share it outside of the organization. And then any document that you assign that label to would not be able to be shared out and only visible by those people. Whereas for newsletters, you might be quite happy for the newsletters to be shared out with anyone, but you might only want to restrict them down to, say, people that handle your marketing. And once again, it controls who can access it and how it can be shared out.
Brilliant. And then, of course, just briefly, we really move on to encrypting email, which is becoming obviously the weakest link still in many security systems, and is a way of hackers, etc., getting into relevant systems. So how do we turn that on and get that operational?
Right. So one of the things about Azure Information Protection is it's quite a heavily used feature, but it's like a small footnote in the list of everything that I can do, is that it can encrypt the messages that you send, so only the actual recipient can unencrypt them. Now, as long as you have Azure Information Protection, it enables it. There's an option in the web interface for using your email, and it also enables a function inside Outlook. Now, inside Desktop Outlook, when you make a new email, on the Options tab, there'll be a new option there for permissions, and if you click on that, one of the options you can choose is encrypt only. So only if the person that you intend to receive it actually receives it, is it translated into something that's readable. But another option that's there as well is that you can also set it to not allow that that email to then be forwarded on from that recipient as well. And that's useful for some people in various scenarios. On the web-based version, it's a very similar method. When you make a new email, there's going to be an option there for protect. Now, when you hit protect on the web version, it's going to come up with a little header above your email, and there's going to be a link there for change permissions. If you click on that, that's where it lets you set it, whether it's to be encrypted only or also to not allow forwarding.
Great. And really lastly, let's just really look at AAPA usage and label files and how we integrate those in.
Yeah, so once you've created all the labels for your organization, it is a very custom thing that you'll be doing, but to make use of it in the easiest fashion, there's basically a plugin that you download from portal.azure.rms.com/#download, and you have to install that and restart your machine before it takes effect. But when it's installed, applying these labels to various documents you create is as easy as just right-clicking on the file, going to classify and protect, and you could set it to be, it's a financial document, it's a newsletter, it's something that's open to be shared with anyone and there's no control on it, just by choosing the option.
Right. And although we covered Intune in certain components a little bit earlier in the presentation, and that was more about the security defaults, perhaps you could just really step us through the other components of Intune that are available in terms of configuring a higher level of security stack.
Yeah, so Intune can be used quite heavily to ensure the security of everything that's connecting through, as well as one of the things that can be done is if it meets the standards you set, and there are a lot of different options there, as it meets the required standards, it can make available various applications for, to that device from your organization. So you don't even need potentially for your employees to make sure they have the Office suite or some other program that they might need for their work. If it meets the standards, there'll be a whole list of things that they can download, and they just choose it and get installed on the device to use it. It works across multiple platforms, as in there's parts of Intune for Android, for both iOS and Mac OS, as well as for Windows. So all these devices can apply and enforce the standards that you've basically configured for Intune. And it also has its own features for controlling where data can be shared with and saved to, that can work in conjunction with Azure Information Protection.
Great, thank you very much, Chris, for stepping us through that. This is an overview of working remotely, and many of the components that we've spoken about today, we do have in-depth sessions on covering a lot more detail. If those and the subjects that we've gone through today are familiar to you, and you're able to action directly from some of the concepts and functionality that we've discussed in remote working. That's fabulous. If they're not, and you need more assistance, more explanation, more one-to-one, then of course, please talk to us, please talk to our helplines, and let's see if we can ensure that you're not only remotely working effectively and efficiently, but also securely. SMS has been helping people since 2006. We are a specialist cloud service provider, and we primarily specialize in Microsoft platforms and also other services and solutions that are complementary to the Microsoft platform. As we've said, our help desk is UK based, and we're more than happy to talk to you at any time. So in this difficult time today, thank you very much for listening to our solutions and our input on this remote working webinar. Thank you for watching. You can contact us either on our sales line, our support line, which are currently on the screen, or of course those contact points, as well as a raft of information about the services and solutions that we in brief have covered with you today, are available from us on our website, which is www.simplymailsolutions.com. So once again, thank you very much for listening to our webinar today. Thank you very much, Chris, and goodbye and keep safe.